World's head developer, Qwel, has promised us a lot of things. One of those things being new floor variants. Oh, you don't believe me? Well, here's her saying it.
A new floor event, similar to Blackout.
And since I know they're coming, I'm gonna look at floor event suggestions by you guys, and then my own that are based purely upon logic inside of Danny's World. You'll have to bear with it. Makes sense. It makes and does. It really does. So in truth, this is a topic that has been touched on quite a bit, but I've never made my own floor varieties. Here's a post that lists the top floor variants inside of Dandy's World. Let's get it. This one's called the Hazardous floors, which will consist of little to no twisteds within the floors. However, as the name suggests, will be littered with hazards and traps that may have the potential to harm an unsuspecting tomb if not careful. These floors have a smaller chance of spawning compared to default floors. 20% by default does not increase by the number of floors. These hazards may consist of spills of Ichor and bear traps, and these spills of Ichor can slow down a toon if they step in the spill. Bear traps, if stepped on, will damage a toon and completely immobilize them, leaving them vulnerable to any chases. Incapacitated toons will have to struggle to break free by themselves, which would be a skill time action of 10 clicks on the spacebar. Twisteds can also get incapacitated by these bear traps for a very short duration of time. I love this one. I just have an extremely hard time seeing this being added into Dandy's World. I'll get into it more later, but I legitimately have some extreme logic as to why I think some of these won't be added, or like why it's just a pipe dream. Up next, we have the unstable floors. These are an extreme floor variant that will challenge and push players' skill, tenacity, and endurance as Ichor flow and pressure levels exceed unnaturally. These floors are exceptionally much more difficult and adrenaline-inducing than average floors and are very, very rare, having a small chance to appear throughout your runs, only 1 to 5% chance. If unlucky enough, this floor can be paired with other floor variants. So you could get a unstable floor with a blackout floor with a hazardous floor. Toons will have a limited time to finish all the machines within the floor before the entire floor collapses and floods with Ichor from the pressure, taking down all the toons within the vicinity who haven't made it to the elevator. Panic spreads across the floor as Twisteds start moving at a faster pace, which isn't panic mode. That's just on the floor. And their extraction speed is increased due to the rising pressure and flow of Ichor, so you'll at least complete machines a little bit faster. I think aspects of the unstable floor could definitely find its way inside of Dandy's World. And I really do like the idea of a hazardous floor working similar to a blackout, where they can stack or it happens just randomly on normal floors. It's not its own separate entity. Up next, we have an interactive floor, which does not significantly change the floor's gameplay, but does give more for players to explore and discover within. These floors open opportunities to discover secrets, game lore, or even an option that the player may take that will change the path of the run. They serve as a side task that a player is free to choose whether they want to participate and uncover secrets or not. And I actually could totally see this being added in Dandy's World in some aspect, because there's that component in Anchored. Anchored literally has this, their shop version. The only thing about the interactive floor is that there will probably be a timer on it. But JDs and gentlemen, it is time for the stupid skeleton man to rub his 2 remaining brain cells together to somehow construct floor event details that make sense to only me. Allow me to break it down. So, currently in Dandy's World, the only floor event is blackouts. However, if you press T on the blackout screen, I just called it a blackout screen. On the mastery screen, you can see at the bottom a certain blackout chance. Through my logic and reasoning, when did that puzzle box get out of there? These event types, or the floor variants that I believe can only happen with inside of a factory. For example, a blackout happening is a reasonable thing to assume happens inside of the game. And it has to be something that I think mechanically goes up every single floor, just like the blackout chance. It's extremely basic. Something along the lines of Ichor overflow, Ichor explosion, Ichor something. You're playing the game, and just imagine that the Dandy's World floor is just covered in ooey gooey sticky Ichor. There's just Ichor everywhere. Considering that blackout doesn't affect gameplay that much, I don't think the new floor variants will either. I simply think that if there was something like black Ichor everywhere on the floor, it simply would make you slower. On this floor, it would decrease your speed a little bit, slightly making the floor a little bit harder. Not absolutely groundbreaking, but something to test the waters as far as floor variants go. Something else that I could totally see happening inside of Danny's World is some type of a buff that the Twisteds get. So it affects only them, and the variant itself is that they maybe consumed more Ichor. For lack of a better word, I call it the Blood Moon. With the Blood Moon, a red hue covers the entire floor, and enemies become more aggressive. Simply put, they get a speed boost, or an aggressive boost, or every single Twisted goes up one step on their attention radius. In case you didn't know, every single Danny's World Twisted has its own unique set in stats. And obviously you know that because they all have their unique and quirky mechanic, but it gets deeper than that. They all have a specific speed, a specific mode in panic mode, or specific speed of movement in panic mode, as well as their own unique and specific attention span, as well as their own unique and specific detection range. Inside of the Blood Moon, mechanically, I think it'd be extremely easy to add, which is also why I think it could be added, and it's also something that would realistically happen inside of a factory, would just be a simple buff to detection range, attention span, and their speed. Just an overall 10% buff, simply put. And it would be as simple as a little text pop-up coming on the screen saying they drank too much Ichor, or a certain voice interaction or something along those lines happens to let you know that you're on a Blood Moon. Or maybe the floor is just a little red hue. Something like that. This next one I have is significantly a stretch. This is my biggest stretch, but the reason I think of it is because I know it can happen because of Danny's World's modded character, Dango. Inside of Danny's World modded, there is a character named Dango that moved differently than every other toon. Whenever you played as Dango, it literally felt like they had ice skates on their feet. They were like slipping and sliding around the map. So what if they just made an entire floor like that, frozen? I know it might be weird for a factory, but maybe on the kitchen floor, the Ichor infected the freaking fridge. I don't know. See, this one's a stretch. I know it's a stretch. However, mechanic-wise, it's very simple to incorporate, right? The floor would just be encased in frost. Your footsteps would crunch. You know, you hear... And naturally, the effect is everyone moves a little bit slower, similar to the Ichor effect, and you slip and slide around. Basically meaning it's easier for you to run in Twisteds. You're going around a corner, you might, whoop, slip into it a little bit easier. I know, this one kind of sucks, but I wanted to try to incorporate it anyways. Regardless though, I'm definitely extremely excited for more gameplay mechanics. I don't know if I've made that obvious enough yet, but I'm going to be happy for it regardless. I'm excited for Saturday because that's when Qwel is actually going to talk to the community and we'll know maybe when the event comes out what's going to be in it exactly. But I'm hoping it's a big one. Either way, it seems like the biggest thing is going to be Halloween anyways. Regardless, thank you guys all so much for watching. I love you, and I'll see you guys all again soon.